Among the many shooting games you can find on the Xbox 360, Shooting Love 2000X is one of the more unique. Featuring 4 games from hyper-niche developer Triangle Service, it contained Zeal Remix, Zeal, -0, and the super sweet shooting skill test. Unfortunately, it's also region-locked, so without a pricey import 360, you're out of the game. Thankfully, Triangle Service has since flipped on its region coding of its games with the release of Shooting Love 10 Shunen, or 10th Anniversary. Shooting Love 10th features only 2 games with none of the shooting skill test goodness its predecessor had.
But that doesn't mean it's not still worth a look. Shooting Love 10th features updated versions of 12 Stag and G-Stream G2020, now known as 12 Zeal and Delta Zeal respectively. As 12 Stag, 12 Zeal was originally released to arcades in 2002, and later saw a home port on the PlayStation 2 in Europe and Japan. A later version of 12 Zeal was ported to Windows phones before making its way to Shooting Love 10th. Oriental Soft's G-Stream, however, has never been on a home console until now. It was also released to arcades in 2002, but was fairly uncommon, yet still fairly well received. It also has a nasty reputation for allegedly running so hot it would melt its own processors.
So, how do these turn-of-the-century 2D arcade shooters fare? Let's take a look. Zeal and Delta Zeal are pretty old already, so it's no real surprise that they don't exactly feel especially polished in the gameplay department. Your 8-way movement is quick but fairly imprecise in both titles. Coming off the heels of bullet hell games like MushiFutari or Dodonpachi Resurrection will force you into a state of mind that will get you killed, since your hitbox is much larger than in those titles.
The bullet patterns you'll see here are very different from most modern shooters on the 360 as well. They are very specific, often directly aimed at you, and seem easy to dodge until you experience their speed. The shots here are pretty quick no matter how you slice it, so practice will likely be required to figure out what bullet types get shot out by what enemies. There's just no other way to say it. These games are still hard, even though the fire is often so sparse. Thankfully, additional credits open up with repeat plays to aid novices.
None of this means that these are bad games. Far from it, actually. There are some really neat things about both 12 Zeal and Delta Zeal that make them worthwhile plays. In 12 Zeal, as always, your main shot can be leveled up with power-up pickups, but your ship also has some innovative alternate shot types. By wiggling your movement left and right rapidly, your ship will fire a powerful side shot that will lay waste to most enemies and even boss elements quite quickly. Mercifully though, this side shot is also mapped to the X button, which allows for a much more precise movement while you execute it. By flying carefully in front of enemies, you can also perform a backwards-facing attack that can be used to destroy enemies as well.
The bomber in 12 Zeal is pretty neat, too. Your bombs create a force field which nullifies bullets and damages enemies within a specific radius for a fixed amount of time. This attack is very localized and doesn't immediately clear all shots off the screen, so care has to be used to maximize its effectiveness. Thankfully, extra bombs are pretty easy to come by, especially later in the game, so their use can be quite a bit more liberal than your typical modern shooting fare. Some of the later stages are very bullet heavy despite not being a Danmaku style game, so this is a pretty welcome feature, especially when it comes to scoring higher.
Delta Zeal is a very different game mechanically speaking. Your ship has a power-up bar on the bottom of the screen with 10 slots. To start, 3 of them will be filled with red wide shot power-ups. Each additional power-up dropped from enemies will cycle between red, blue, and green, and will be added to the bar when picked up. Green pickups give you missile attacks, while blue is for a powerful straight-firing laser. The more you have of a specific color, the more powerful they get, with a massive power boost if the entire gauge is filled with only one color.
This makes for a really customizable approach to the game. Do you equally apply all 3 for a super balanced attack? Or do you max out one specific shot type for overwhelming power, even if it means a more limited hit area? The choice is yours, but you can change your mind. If you choose to change things up, you can pick up a different power type, which will be added to the bar in a last-in, first-out manner.
The bomb attack is a bit different here too. This particular bomber will clear away enemy bullets from the screen within a fixed radius, but this damage radius will travel further or closer to you depending how long you hold the bomber button down. There is also a black hole bomb here too, and much like the one in 12 Zeal, it's quite localized. To activate this special attack, you'll need to hold the non-rapid A button to charge it up, which also reduces your speed. The black hole's bomb duration depends on how high you can get the small green number above your gauge to go before using it, indicated by an OK. You can charge this attack by collecting tiny fragments left behind from enemy explosions. This attack can be used to nullify enemy bullets for score pickups as well as damaging enemies, and acts as a handy shield against shots that would normally be very hard to avoid.
Simple gameplay mechanics give way to complex conditions by which alternative paths, stages, and bosses will appear in both games. Discovering and meeting these conditions can add a lot of time to your play experience, and actually makes getting most of the achievements here not only doable for most players, but fun as well. Both of these games will also have score attack stages open up as they are cleared in the main arcade modes. There are also a whole bunch of typical options, such as difficulty, life, and bomb stock, as well as control tweaks. All in all, 12 Zeal and Delta Zeal are pretty solid at their cores, and, as we'll see, also have some solid scoring systems as well.
Much like the game's mechanics themselves, 12 Zeal and Delta Zeal have pretty old-feeling score systems too. Nothing especially fancy here, but that could be a good thing, making for a simple change of pace. 12 Zeal, for example, derives most of its scoring from a multiplier that is obtained from destroying enemies with your side shot and backward shot. The multiplier goes to 12 and steadily counts down. It can be brought back up again anytime you kill an enemy using your side shot and backward shot again. Even boss elements destroyed in this way can add to this multiplier.
Using the bomb attack is also a great way to get a high score in 12 Zeal. Any enemy bullet that meets the barrier your bombs create will be nullified and steadily increase in bonus value, up to 1,000 points each. This can lead to some huge bonuses, depending which enemies are firing at you. Of course, max bomb and max power pickups will net you 1,000 point bonus as well. At stage end, you can even see a graph that shows your current score compared to the all-time local best.
Like its gameplay, Delta Zeal's scoring is a bit more complex. While it doesn't have the multipliers that 12 Zeal does, Delta Zeal does have a medaling system that is, well, a little picky. Medals grow in value from 10 to 1,000 points based on how many in a row you collect without missing any. In a lot of ways, it's like Raiden fighters. Using the black hole bomb to nullify bullets can help in getting a lot of big medals if you happen to have collected a bunch of them.
Another scoring tactic is taking out a bunch of enemies at one time, which results in a 5,000 point score, much like the destroyed at a time bonus in Raiden fighters. In addition, if your weaponry is fully powered with a particular color, all additional pickups of the same color will boost your score as well. It's all pretty simple, but hard to do in practice, since Delta Zeal can be really spiteful with its fire at times.
The score attack modes basically just challenge you to get as high a score as you can in a single stage. You can also upload your scores to Xbox Live leaderboards as well. Granted, both Delta Zeal and 12 Zeal feel like survival games more than score chasers, but the options are nice. Presentation-wise, Shooting Love 10 Shunen is, well, old. And kind of ugly a lot of the time. In fact, perhaps the best part of its presentation is the game box cover with its ton of sprites, and the back of the instruction manual which has the single coolest picture of all time.
The visuals here are chunky and pixely and not all that beautiful, despite some really strong mechanical design. The colors are mostly muted and backgrounds are often very repetitive, making for a fairly bland feel overall, which is more or less consistent with both 12 Zeal and Delta Zeal.
The sound is also not exactly strong in Shooting Love 10th. Outside of a funky cool menu screen theme, the music for the most part isn't especially gripping. Even the sound effects are kinda dull and not especially well thought out. The side shot in 12 Zeal will get under your skin, and you're going to hear a specific explosion for larger enemies a lot.
Even the main menu isn't especially grand, but does change dynamically as you clear more stages, which is pretty cool. On the whole though, if you're looking for a super great presentation, you might need to look elsewhere. So, just how does Shooting Love 10 Shunen stack up? Let's take a look.
The control in Shooting Love 10 Shunen is manageable, though not perfect. Slightly worse in Delta Zeal than in 12 Zeal.
12 Zeal definitely stands out better control-wise, though both are still mostly solid in the end.
This game is plenty hard. Limited credits accentuate utter failure.
12 Zeal's many different attack types makes it feel much easier than Delta Zeal. The final stage of Delta Zeal will kick you back to stage start if you use a credit.
With 8 stages in 12 Zeal and another 9 at least in Delta Zeal, there's a lot to play here, with extra replay in the challenging branching levels and unlockable score attack stages.
Both games will keep you busy for a long enough time. The length will wear on you though if your deaths are constant and you aren't able to improve.
These are old games, and they show. Even with smoothing on, these games are both kind of ugly. They're definitely better suited for CRTs than HD displays.
These games are pretty clunky visually. Even the more colorful Delta Zeal ends up having too much of everything blend with everything else.
The sound is also quite bland on the whole, with the best standout tune being the menu music at game selection.
Overused sound effects and generic music end up melding into a general mishmash of noise that fails to stand out.
Both 12 Zeal and Delta Zeal do nifty things with their core game mechanics and are suitably fresh for it. The scoring leaves a bit to be desired, but with the stage branching, Shooting Love 10th still comes off as pretty fun.
The shot types in 12 Zeal and the power bar in Delta Zeal are neat features that stand out from most other shooters. Wiggle shot for life.
Shooting Love 10 Shunen doesn't have the funky freshness of its predecessor, but it does allow for anyone anywhere to check out some interesting shooters that have been largely unknown, especially in North America. Though they're a bit ugly and somewhat unpolished, 12 Zeal and Delta Zeal are both quite solid and come together to form a decent package in the end. Shooting Love 10 Shunen gets a 3.5 out of 5. Getting a copy of Shooting Love 10 Shunen is still pretty easy to do, and for a fairly reasonable price all things considered. Outlets such as PlayAsia have the standard version for around $60, with the special pack that includes a soundtrack CD coming in at about $100. eBay is overpriced at this point, so be sure to snap this one up new while you can, if it strikes your fancy.